Welcome learners to our journey of unlocking the world of Metadiscourse. In this video, we're going to discuss about first impressions of what is Metadiscourse and dive into the concept of Metadiscourse. By the end of our journey, you'll be equipped to explain, discuss, and apply the concept of first impressions in Metadiscourse with clear and understandable language. Before we dive into the concept of Metadiscourse, let's break down some important terms. You've probably heard someone say, "That's so meta," or "It is very meta." But what does meta actually mean? Let's explore some real-life examples. You're probably familiar with the word metaverse. Imagine a world alongside our own where people interact in a virtual space. That's a metaverse. Have you ever been in a conversation about conversation itself? That's what we call meta. A movie about making a movie where the actors critique their own acting skills? That's pretty meta. Now, let's talk about data. Let's say that you have a census data which exposes the location of a house, the number of people in a house, their genders, and ages. The metadata for a census would be who collected and when, who entered the data and when, and what form questionnaire was used. It is data about data. So, a meta joke is a joke about jokes. A meta movie is a movie about movies. A metadata is a data about data, just like metadiscourse. It's a discourse about discourse. The word meta derives from the Greek meta, which encompasses a wide array of meanings, such as with, after, alongside, on top of, and beyond. So, when someone says, "It is very meta," they are referring to digging deeper into a subject beyond what the original subject was discussing. Now, let's move on to discourse. Based on Cambridge Dictionary, this term refers to how we use language to communicate, whether in speech or writing. It could be a debate, a speech, or a piece of writing about a particular topic. In a sense, it's the way we express ourselves. What happens when we combine meta with discourse? We get metadiscourse, which refers to how we use language out of consideration for our readers or hearers, based on our estimation of how best we can help them process and comprehend what we are saying. Just like peeling back the layers of an onion, digging deeper into the subject beyond its initial discussion. Imagine someone says, "You are wrong," and we can actually change this by adding some metadiscourse. So, what if instead of just saying, "You are wrong," we say, "I think you are wrong"? You can probably hear that it changes the tone a little bit. It doesn't sound quite so harsh. "I think" is the metadiscourse. That's the language we use to frame the actual context. Language consists of a picture and a frame. The frame around the picture is what we call metadiscourse. We use metadiscourse to add flavor or context, to talk about our ideas, and to kind of explain how the reader should think about them. Here's a useful definition from Ken Hyland. He says that, essentially, metadiscourse embodies the idea that communication is more than just the exchange of information, goods, or services, but also involves the personalities, attitudes, and assumptions of those who are communicating. Let's take a look into these two texts. Do you feel the difference? The first text with metadiscourse includes additional guidance and instructions that mimic a conversational tone, making it more reader-friendly and engaging. On the other hand, the second text without metadiscourse provides straightforward instructions without the extra commentary. It only focuses on the main points the reader needs to follow. The concept of meta-discourse is based on a view of writing and speaking as a social and communicative engagement, offering a means of understanding the ways we project ourselves into our text to manage our communicative intentions. We can decide how far it can be direct, involved, informal, friendly, or maybe forceful.
Next, we will discuss about a context of emergence between information and interaction. Linguists adopt a limited approach to draw the probability of how people actually use language in everyday life. They made a distinction between transactional and interactional. According to Brown and Yule in 1983 and Jacobson in 1960, transactional and interactional means the function which language serves to express content and the function used to express personal relations and attitudes. The introduction of metadiscourse into the applied linguistics vocabulary in the 1980s, building on sociolinguistic conceptions of plans of discourse, frames, alignment, and meta-talk. Sinclair's distinction between interactive and autonomous plans of discourse. The interactive plans concern the ways we use language to build a relationship with the reader through presenting our text interactively. The autonomous plans refer to present information through the organization of text. Sinclair's theory emphasizes participants to share their experience and not just their information. Work by the sociolinguist Bateson in 1972 and Goffman in 1974 frames was an important early development leading to linguistic conception of metadiscourse. The notion of frames refers to our cognitive or conceptual views of particular situations, including the ways we name or characterize what is being said. Reagan and Hopper's in 1981 discussion of alignment similarly helped to bring interactional aspects of discourse into focus, showing how language allows users to promote a positive impression of themselves and to negotiate participant roles with the hearer. Debbie Schifrin in 1980, a sociolinguist, showing how in meta-talk, the conversationalist commonly move from presenting information into becoming a conscious and explicit producer of the discourse itself by referring to organizational or evaluative aspects of the talk. The interpersonal dimension, which includes affiliations, experiences, expectations, and background understanding, will influence how the audience or participants receive the message conveyed by the speaker, no matter how explicit the information is, and will also influence how participants interpret and engage in the discussion.
Next, we will discuss about metadiscourse and audience awareness. Malinowski as early as 1923 argued that people use language semantically to convey professional information and to create and maintain expressive meaning. While more recently, writers in fields such as pragmatics, English language teaching, academic writing, and critical discourse analysis have similar observation. The next, there is example situation about audience awareness. An example of lecturer being class and sharing a series of information with his students. The lecturer as the speaker and the students as the audience. The speaker opens the conversation by confirming the situation of the students, such as, "Okay, can everyone hear me? Alright." Then continues with sentences that refer to what will happen today and continues by giving an overview of what students will get from the class by giving the lecture topic and announcing that assessment will be distributed and discussed. The lecture topic and announcing that assignment will be distributed and discussed. The lecturer then asserted his authority and made sure students realized the importance of assignment. His authority as a lecturer was also evident in the speaker's word choice of reminding students about the next class and directing them to think about midterm goals. Finally, he again invited his students to ask questions and ensured that the information was conveyed clearly to the students as the audience. Throughout our pragmatic device, such as the words "okay" and "alright" that help me frame the boundaries in the discourse as the speaker moved from issue to align interaction and perspective between individuals. Note everything that occurs in such informational genres works to convey information. Speakers and writers seek to ensure that the information they present is not only distinct and intelligible, but also understood, accepted, and in many cases, acted upon. Addresses have to be drawn in, engaged, motivated to follow along, participate, and perhaps to be influenced or persuaded by a discourse. To do this, senders endeavor to shape their text to the anticipated expectation and requirements of receivers.
Interaction and audience. What is interaction? Interaction refers to the dynamic exchange of information, energy, or influence between two or more entities. What is audience? An audience refers to the group or individuals or entities who receive a message, performance, or presentation. It can be composed of various demographics, interests, and backgrounds, and also is typically targeted by a communicator or performer for the purpose of conveying information, ideas, or entertainment. Greb and Kaplan point to 5 main parameters of audience that influence writing. The first is the number of readers. Whether a text is written for oneself, a single person, a small group, or a large heterogeneous group will have an impact on linguistic and rhetorical choice. Second, whether readers are known or unknown. The degree of closeness to the reader is likely to influence the extent of interactional and involvement features in the text. Third, the relative status of participant. Metadiscourse choice will also vary depending on whether the writer has an equal or lower status than the reader. In spoken context, it seems that equal status creates more interactional negotiation. Fourth, the extent of shared background knowledge. Writers are likely to be more explicit in their use of metadiscourse, where they assume the reader's lack of cultural, institutional, or social familiarity with issues. And the last, the extent to which specific topical knowledge is shared. How far writers can rely on readers knowing about the topic will influence not only the amount of detail that can be included, but also the elaboration of ideas and assumptions through the code glosses, the amount of evidential support required, the frequency of explicit transition, and so on. So, using metadiscourse enables writers to convey their message in ways that are recognizable and acceptable to the audience, taking into account social, affective, and cognitive aspects of communication. Thus, writing is not just about informational clarity, but also about the writer's projection of a shared context through recognized and accepted discourse.
The conclusion to this chapter is the view that all speech and writing, whether professional, academic, or personal, can include expressions that are directed at the producer of the text, the targeted recipient, and the evolving text. These expressions are referred to as metadiscourse. The textual aspect of metadiscourse especially organize a discourse or attitude of the author towards its content or its readers. We agree with Feigley's point that discourse can only be understood from the point of view of society and not from the point of view of an individual. The concept of metadiscourse as a social and communicative engagement provides a means of managing our communicative intentions. The terms emerge to help re-establish the importance of the interpersonal aspect of a language after a period when language were almost exclusively concerned with the way language was used to convey information. With the development of discourse analysis as the primary tool for understanding language use, the importance of social interaction in speech has become increasingly apparent. Metadiscourse has emerged as a way to highlight these interactional features. In short, we now realize that without metadiscourse, readers would not be able to contextualize a text, and writers would not be able to communicate effectively.
As our exploration of metadiscourse comes to a close, remember that first impressions matter, whether in starting a relationship, applying for a job, even in today's digital world. Metadiscourse shapes our interactions and influences how we engage with others.